Welcome to Basic Money Talk. My name's Rich. This is the podcast about simple financial advice and everyday money matters. I'm going to keep these episodes short and sweet so you can get on with your day. Thanks again for joining me.
Sometimes we stress and too much we think.
Hey everyone, what's happening? Thanks again for coming along. So we're talking about death today. I'm going to talk about death pretty casually. So if you are uncomfortable, please don't listen and move along. All right. So you're going to die. That's the name of this podcast episode. We are all going to die. And when you die, it's going to affect people. And depending upon how much you plan will affect the mess that you leave behind when you die. I wanted to talk about this casually because a lot of us put this stuff off because it's really difficult. It's not fun to think about death or our mortality. It's not easy to plan for things in the future like death and retirement because it's hard to really get a sense for those things. It's so far in the future. It might be a little bit easier for you if you've experienced a death with a close person in your life. I lost my parents both within the last 6 years. And so that affected my perspective on death and life. And I'm afraid as time goes by, I might lose that perspective, to be honest. Maybe you are worried about having an illness. Maybe you know someone with an illness. Maybe you have parents that are older and they're going to pass someday. The way I like to think about it is that it's just a part of life. We are all going to die. If you don't think you're going to die, I don't know. Good for you. I don't know I don't know where you live or what's going on, but that's fantastic. Go with it. So there was a really cool commencement speech by Steve Jobs that's out there on the internet. Go ahead and find that. It's all about life and change and death. So yeah, we're all going to die. So just accept it. It's a part of life. I know for myself personally, when I planned a lot of my estate, I felt so much better. I had some worries about death and my own mortality at some point. And I simply just faced it. And I went through, I was like, okay, what's going to happen if I die? What do I need to prepare for? What do I need to leave behind for my family so that everything is taken care for? So my family and friends will be affected emotionally and they'll have to grieve, okay? I don't want to put a year of paperwork and stress on top of that if I don't have to, right? I want them to be able to move on with their life and enjoy their life, okay? When people die in our lives, moving on is not forgetting them. It's just accepting the loss, living with it. It's a part of you, but you still move on with your life. And so planning for your death is okay. So maybe you're afraid to face this. So there's a couple ways you can do this. And I think the best thing to do is probably just open up a document or a pen and paper and write down, what's your worst fear about when you die? Is it what you will go through, or is it about what will happen to people you leave behind? What do you want your loved one's experience to be when you die? Do you want them to be okay financially, and do you want them to not worry about what you left behind? So just go through those thoughts and address them, face them head on. We're talking about death and money. What happens when you die? What happens to your assets? How is it handled? So let's get into some of the details. Life insurance. Life insurance is there to replace the income that is lost when you die. If you are a single person and no one depends upon your income, then it's not too big of a loss. You probably want a nice ceremony and send off. Let's make sure that's taken care of. But if you have a family and loved ones that depend upon your income, you want to make sure you have the appropriate life insurance so that when you're gone, they can survive without you. If you look at your budget and figure that out, it's pretty easy. So that's another good reason to have a budget. It just makes these kinds of questions so much easier. Okay, if you have a budget all set up and what it costs your family to live month to month, and you just plug in a zero in your income column, that's it. That's what needs to be replaced when you're gone. It's very simple. Well, it's not that simple, but but that's the idea, right? So life insurance, that's an important thing. 401ks, pensions, life insurance, anything where you assign a beneficiary, these things automatically get transferred by law according to that beneficiary. So make sure if you have life insurance, if you have a 401k, an IRA, a pension, look at that. Just take some time and look at that. Who is the beneficiary? Because if you had a divorce or a life change, you want to make sure that's up to date, okay? That's really important. A will. Do you need a will? All right, so that's the next part. Besides life insurance and retirement accounts, then you fall into this whole other bucket of wealth. And the easiest way to think about this is, where is all your money? Okay. So if you have a bank account or many bank accounts or many assets, you need to make a list. Write down all the accounts and who is the owner of those accounts, okay? If you're single, it's probably just you. If you're married or have a partner, it's you and or them, but you might not know. So you really want to know who is the owner of those accounts and those assets. That includes a house. Don't assume that just because you die and you're married, everything's going to go to your wife or partner. That's not how it works. All right, you have to plan this out ahead of time. You can look up your deed for your county and you can see how it's assigned, and there's 2 or 3 ways a deed can be assigned. The best way, if you're married, is that, when you die, it goes to your wife automatically, but don't assume that it's set up that way. Same thing with your bank account. So what happens when you die? Well, you're dead. I'm trying to keep it fun, all right? Listen, you're dead. You're not worrying about it, okay? You're gone, all right? Now there's loved ones left behind. So let's say you die and you have a bank account with $3,000 in it. Your loved one or friend or wife cannot simply walk into the bank and say, hey, my friend died. I want to take that money now. He said it's mine. No, they won't let you do that, okay? You have to have a notarized letter from the court of law, from going through probate, that says, okay, we've deemed that this money can be transferred to you. That's what the probate court is for. So when you die, your assets have to be transferred to someone, whether it's $3,000, $500, or $1 million. It has to be transferred to someone. It has to go through probate. There are ways to avoid probate. We'll get into that next. But basically, the reason you go through probate is the state has to say, these assets now belong to this person, so then that person collect those assets. So the reason you have a will is because you want to voice your concern while you're still alive. What do you want to happen with those assets? Do you want it to transfer to your mother or a friend or your wife or your kids? That's why you have the will. If you don't have a will, the probate court will just say, okay, we're going to make decisions ourselves. The judge will make their own decisions. The will does not avoid probate. The will just assists the judge or the probate officer to go through this process, okay? Because now your wishes are made. That's why you have a will. So you're dead, and I'm sorry, and I'm sorry for your loved ones, right? You just don't, it's going to be tough for them. They're going to have to grieve and get on without you, and that sucks as it is. You want to make things easy for them. So life insurance, make sure you have a beneficiary. 401ks, IRAs, make sure you have a beneficiary. Make sure you have a will. That's going to tell the probate court what to do. The other thing you can do is set up a trust. There are 2 different types of trust, but a trust is just a legal entity and allows you to put assets into that entity. And the reason you do that is because it avoids probate. So, for example, let's say I have $1,000. I put it into a trust. So I create this legal entity. It's called Rich's Trust. So now I have to go to the bank and I have to fund that trust. So I'm going to say, you know what? That account with $1,002 is now going to belong to Rich's Trust. And the bank says, okay, I have to provide documentation. So now I set a trustee. I assign my wife or a child, and they're the receiver of that trust. So now when I die, they can take that paperwork, go to the bank and say, here's proof that Rich is dead. and I need that money. It was in a trust and I'm the trustee. They say, okay, it's yours. All right. Now you didn't have to go through the probate process. So that's how that works. It's pretty simple, but when you just listen to words in estate planning, it can sound boring and confusing. Trust me, I know. It's important to think about these things and just try and think about how you want people to be able to move on with their lives when a loved one dies, all right? If you have a parent and they have a complicated life, maybe they have multiple houses, lots of money, maybe there's multiple kids in your family, all kinds of things can happen when it comes to money and a loved one dies. And so you want to make that change as easy as possible. You want to just reduce any stress by planning ahead. If you do have parents and you're thinking about these things, the AARP has a really cool website. There's this really cool thing out there called the 5 Wishes, where you could have your parents fill out a document. There's all sorts of advice on when to bring up this subject, maybe like a family gathering. It can be emotional for some people, so you don't want to force that subject. If you're trying to get a loved one to talk about it, that can be really difficult. But for you, in setting up your planning, your estate planning, just think about what you want to be left behind when you die, because you are going to die. That's my positive statement for the day. And it's true. That's true. We're all going to die. So you can either avoid that question and leave a mess for someone, right? A big mess, or you could think ahead and plan these out, and a loved one will be grateful for someday that, they died, but you know what? It wasn't too bad. I was able to just focus on my grieving. It's hard enough to deal with a death. You don't want to add load of financial crap on top of it, or fights or anything like that, okay? So that's why I wanted to talk about that today. So that's basically estate planning. I hope I made this a little simple. This is Basic Money Talk, and that's the point. I have a really cool website. It's called basicmoneytalk.com, where I teach you how to build wealth by saving money with simple financial advice. All right. There's lots of stuff out there, and I can whittle it down to some simple things for you and save you a lot of time. That is my goal. There's also a Facebook group that you can check out called Basic Money Talk. And I want to exit this podcast with one of my songs, The Interest of Time. You hear it on the intro. And since we're talking about death and the interest of time, I'm going to let it play out through the end. You can check it out on all streaming platforms under Rich Bean if you're interested. Thanks for going through this journey. I know it might not be easy to think about, and maybe it might generate some difficult thoughts the next few days, but it's okay. It's important. It's part of life. Don't be afraid to talk about it with people. So enjoy this song. Hope you have an awesome day. Take care.